Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Last week we started the story of Joseph and the guest, or Joseph and the mirror. So the story, the way it started, the way Maulana started it, was a guest comes to Sayyidina Yusuf, comes to Joseph, and he was a friend. He was an old friend of Joseph. So they knew each other from childhood. They knew each other from the times of childhood, and they had good memories with each other. They knew all about each other. So the friend asks Sayyidina Yusuf about all those things that Joseph went through, the envy of his brothers, the prison, going to the well. How did it go? And Joseph replies, a lion has no disgrace, is not disgraced by the chain. If a lion is in chains, it's still a lion. If Maulana gave the example of the moon, if the moon disappears for a few nights, it's still the full moon. You don't see the moon, but the moon is still there. And that's why Maulana mentions all these examples to show us that Anbiya and Awliya, they're there. If we don't see them, it's our shortcoming. We fail to see them, but they're there. The presence, the power, it's still there. And the spirit is not harmed. The body can be harmed, but the spirit is not harmed. Right? Just like the moon, you can't harm the moon. The clouds come and cover the moon, but the moon, it's still there. Maulana gave another example of the wheat. You think you can crush the wheat, but no, it's crushed, and then from that grain of wheat, you will have ears of corn. So it grows and becomes even more valuable. And then again, one more time, it's crushed in the mill. You think it's crushed, it's gone. No, it's not gone. It becomes bread. It becomes more valuable. Again, the bread is crushed under the teeth, but that bread becomes soul, becomes life, becomes reason. So don't think that spiritual people, they can be crushed, they can be defeated. No, they grow stronger. And then Maulana says, this is what Allah Ta'ala tells us on the day of judgment, on the day of resurrection. Just like Joseph said to this friend, did you bring a gift for me on your travels? Did you come empty-handed? That's what Allah Ta'ala will tell us on that day. Did you come empty-handed? Did you bring something? Or you had no hope of returning? If you had hope of returning, where is your gift? What is something that you've brought with yourself? And Maulana reminded us, what is something that we should bring with ourselves? It's cutting back on sleep and food, and remembering Allah, asking pardon of Allah in the early hours of dawn. And be like the embryo that moves. And once it moves, then it's born, it exits that narrow world of inside the womb, and then opens its eye to a new world. That's the spiritual birth. And in that world, the heart is never constrained, the heart is never oppressed, because that world is expansive. In this world, you have dry branches, and that world, nothing's dry, nothing's barren, everything's flourishing. And then Maulana said, the reason we don't see this world, the reason you don't see this world is because you're حاملته مرحبا سترقنا. You're carrying your senses, you're carrying your thoughts and anxieties. But awliya, no, they're not carrying, they're being carried. And that's why they're not affected. That's why they don't grieve, as the Qur'an says, لا خوف عليهم, right? They don't fear, they don't grieve. It's because they have that deep, that strong trust in Allah Ta'ala, and it's Allah Ta'ala who's carrying them through all these different situations. And Maulana gave the example of Ashab al-Kahf, right? The men of the cave, they're asleep, and Allah Ta'ala turns them to the right, turns them to the left. That's the state of the awliya. In their good actions, the actions of the akhirah, in their dunya actions, in their affairs of the body. In both cases, it's Allah who is acting, right? And they're in submission, they're in surrender. These actions proceed from them, but it's just like the echo. They're the echo of Allah. They're unconscious of both, like the echo. Yes, Raf.
Yes, yeah. Actually, I believe there is a hadith referring to Imam al-Mahdi, Jalal. It's related to his nature. It's about like, as you mentioned, there is, the sun is the sun, even if it was covered
Covered by clouds. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, his example is like the sun when it is covered by clouds. You don't see him, but he's there.
Indeed. And yeah, that's what Maulana is telling us, right? The moon, you don't see it, but it's in the sky. It's the full moon. So yeah, I guess we could, inshallah, start the new section. Does anyone want to volunteer to read the translation? Okay, I guess I will have to read it myself then. Okay, so Bismillah, I'll read it myself. Joseph said, "Come, produce the gift." He, on account of shame at this demand, sobbed aloud. "How many a gift," said he, "did I seek for you? No gift came into my sight. How should I bring a grain to the mine? How should I bring a drop to the Oman? I shall bring cumin to Kerman if I bring my heart and soul to you. There is no seed that's not in this barn, except your beauty, which has no equal. I deemed it fitting that I should bring to you a mirror like the light of a breast, that you may behold your beauteous face therein, O you who, like the sun, are the candle of heaven. I've brought you a mirror, O light, so that when you see your face, you may think of me." He drew forth the mirror from beneath his arm. The fair one's business is with a mirror. What is the mirror of being? Not being. Bring not being if you're not a fool. Being can be seen in not being. The rich bestow generosity on the poor. The clean mirror of bread is truly the hungry man. Tinder likewise is the mirror of that from which fire is struck. Not being and defect, wherever they arise, are the mirror which displays the excellence of all crafts. When a garment is neat and well stitched, how should it enable the tailor to exhibit his skills? Trunks of trees must be uncut in order that the woodcutter may fashion the stem or the branches. The doctor who sets broken bones goes to the place where the person with the fractured leg is. How shall the excellence of the art of medicine be made manifest when there is no emaciated invalid? How shall the elixir be shown if the vileness and baseness of coppers is not notorious? Defects are the mirror of the quality of perfection, and that vileness is the mirror of power and glory. Because contrary is certainly made evident by its contrary, because honey is perceived with vinegar. Whoever has seen and recognized his own deficiency has ridden post-haste in perfecting himself. The reason why he is not flying towards the Lord of glory is that he supposes himself to be perfect. There's no worse malady in your soul, O haughty one, than the conceit of perfection. Much blood must flow from your heart and eye, that self-complacency may leave you. The fault of Iblis lay in thinking, I am better. And this disease is in the soul of every creature. Though he regards himself as very broken, know that it is clear water and dung under the stream. When he stirs you in trial, immediately the water becomes dung-colored. There is dung in the bed of the stream, my man, though to you the stream appears pure. It is the peer, full of wisdom, well acquainted with the way, that digs a channel for the streams of the flesh and the body. Can the water of the stream clear out the dung? Can man's knowledge sweep away the ignorance of his sensual self? How shall the sword fashion its own hilt? Go, entrust this wound to a surgeon. Flies gather on every wound, so that no one sees the foulness of his wound. Those flies are your thoughts and your possessions. Your wound is the darkness of your states. And if the peer lays a plaster on your wound, at once the pain and lamentation are stilled, so that you fancy it is healed. The ray of the plaster has shone upon the spot. Beware, do not turn your head away from the plaster, O you who are wounded in the back, but recognize that that proceeds from the ray. Do not regard it as from your own constitution. Okay, so گفت یوسف هین بیاور ارمغان او ز شرم این تقاضا زد فغان. So Joseph said, come and produce the gift. But he was shamed. He was ashamed. He said, what kind of gift can I bring to you? There's nothing that comes into my sight. Can I bring sands to the desert? Can I bring zire be Kerman burdan? Right? In Persian, we say zire be Kerman burdan, cumin to Kerman. Kerman is the source of all cumin. If I bring my heart to you, you're the source of all hearts and souls. You're the source of all knowledge. You're the source of all love. What can I bring to you? What can I bring to Allah? Can I bring love, bring knowledge, bring piety? He's the source. So what can I bring? لایقان دیدم که من آینه‌ای پیش تو آرم چون نور سینه. All I can bring to you is to bring a mirror. آینه‌ای چون نور سینه. A mirror that's like the heart. A mirror that's like the light of the heart, light of the breast. You know, this is something characteristic of Maulana. Most poets, most people will say, the heart is like a mirror. But Maulana says, no, I'm going to bring a mirror that's like the heart. Because the heart is more mirror-like. It's more resplendent. It's more pure than a mirror, than any mirror. So I'm going to bring a mirror that's like the heart. It's like the light of the heart. So that you see your beautiful face in that mirror. So he says, use of your light, and I bring a heart that's purified to you, so that you may see your own face in it. And then Maulana says, آینه هستی چه باشد? What is the mirror of being? So Allah Ta'ala is being, is absolute being, is hasti, is existence, being itself. What is the mirror of being? Not being. Fana, nisti. So if you want to go to Allah, go with nisti, go with nothingness. And when you go with nothingness, that's when the being shines in you. The being of Allah shines in you. Hasti andar nisti betvan namud. Being can be seen in not being. Maldaran bar faqir arand jud. The rich are generous to the poor. The rich are not generous to other rich people. As in the Qur'an says, إنما الصدقات للفقراء. Charity is for the poor. So if you want to receive charity from the King of Kings, you need to go as a poor person, as a miskin, as someone who's going there with need, not someone who claims to be independent. So Maulana is saying we should go to Allah Ta'ala as a mirror. Allah Ta'ala is absolute al-Ghani, we should go as faqir. Allah Ta'ala is all knowledgeable, we should go as ignorant, as someone who's there to learn, someone who's ignorant. Allah Ta'ala is powerful, we should go as weak. That's our attribute. If Allah Ta'ala's attribute is alive, our attribute is dead. Our attribute is ignorance. Our attribute is poverty. Our attribute is hunger. Our attribute is thirst. Allah Ta'ala's attribute is the rich, right? The one who, al-Ghani, doesn't need anything in the world. And then Maulana says all crafts, all businesses in this world, they're based on defect. They're based on need. Why do tailors work? Because the garments are not neat. So people have to go to the tailors to ask them to alter, cut whatever the garments. Why are there woodcutters? Because the wood needs to be cut. Why are there doctors in the world? Because they're patients. Why are there bakers in the world? Because there are people who are hungry. So everything that happens in this world, it's based on need. But I mean, in this world, it's actually mutual needs, right? So the baker needs money, you need bread. But Allah Ta'ala doesn't need. So you go as the needy one. He's the bounteous one. He wants to give. There is no alchemy if there is no copper. If everything's gold, there is no need for alchemy. So defects are important. You know, some people say, why couldn't Allah Ta'ala create a world that's already perfect? That there is no hunger, there's no thirst, there's no sickness. Because medicine itself is a good, and there would be no medicine if there was no sickness. This good could not have been manifested. It could not have appeared if there wasn't that defect, if there wasn't that sickness. Same, if there was no hunger in this world, there would be no feeding the hungry. That's a beautiful thing that wouldn't have appeared if there wasn't that hunger. And yes, Maulana says, Zanke zed ra zed konad payda yaqeen. So everything is made manifest by its contrary, by its opposite. So opposites make each other meaningful, right? You recognize hunger when you recognize food, whatever the opposites are. Zanke ba sirke padid astan gabin, just like honey and vinegar. If everything in this world is honey, you wouldn't recognize honey. You wouldn't appreciate honey. You would take it for granted. The reason you appreciate the sweetness of honey is because there's also vinegar. There's also sour and bitter things. So you do need these opposites to appreciate the good. You do need the imperfections. The world is not perfect without the imperfections. Zahraj.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So yesterday I went to a sohbah. I connected on Zoom, and it was talking about that everybody has their own stamp, and basically most of the time we're trying to strive for perfection, and sometimes it's the nafs, which is kind of, sometimes you want to be more spiritual or more religious, but it's a trap that you fall into. And it's really interesting, this passage talking about perfection and Iblis and the tricks that we can fall into. So yeah,
absolutely, yeah, indeed. And yeah, Maulana is going to elaborate on the tricks of the nafs.
So if there's any more that you can add to what he's trying to say, that this section is really interesting to me. Thank you.
From the verses we've discussed so far? Or
no, where it starts talking about Iblis and
yes, we will go through that,
Thank
inshallah.
you.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Rafijan.
This, like, even meaning, when you go to words, like the meaning is a differential relationship between words. So like you wouldn't be able to know this the meaning of a certain word unless there is an opposite to that word. And there was a very good example, about this, like perfection. You can always make perfect house and architecturally, functionally, and everything. And you look at the beautiful things in the house, like, for example, the kitchen, the living room, the rooms themselves, every beautiful thing out there. But it has to contain something that you have to add. The bathroom, people would love, to get rid of it. That's why, for example, in the Middle East, especially in Arab, you find the bathroom outside the house. So there is something. There is one inside the house, but usually people use the one that is outside the house. But that it's so perfection. You can't have like zero imperfect thing. There should be something imperfect, and
there should be, yeah,
for things to work. For things to work. Otherwise, they don't work.
Absolutely.
This is the same way, like with the universe. Yeah. And even if you look at the Quran, like in Quranic studies, for example, okay, this is the perfect word of God, but still, when you look into the Quran, people ask, why didn't Allah say this clearly and plainly so that people can be guided? Well, the idea is for them to be guided, and the Quran itself, to guide the people. But when you look at the different interpretations, all these things, that people come up with about the Quran, say, why is that? That is the idea, is that people have to have multiplicity, or multiple interpretations, multiple choices, perfections and imperfections, so that they are tested. Otherwise, it's the paradise. We should have been there, we shouldn't have been sent down,
Totally.
Right?
It's the nature of this world. Totally. Yes, Kanzaj.
Yeah, just on the philosophical level, basically it's the idea that we live in the relative, whereas the absolute, we cannot reach it. It's just impossible because we live in the relative. This world, this dunya is all relative. That's why we need opposites to understand things. That's a very larger philosophical issue, and Ali Shariati and others have spoken about this, and Mullah Sadra also has a lot on that. But also Kant and also other ones in the West. I just wanted to say that, like, we are relative, and the absolute is we cannot understand it, we can't comprehend it, and we can't put it into words, because once you put the absolute into words, obviously it becomes relative.
Indeed. So yeah, Maulana is saying, don't expect perfection in this world. This world, you have defects. It's based on defects. And that's fine. That's the nature of this world. If there was no hunger, there would be no bakeries. So a lot of these beautiful things that we have in this world is because there are defects. If there was no vinegar, we wouldn't appreciate the sweetness of honey. We do appreciate honey because there is vinegar. So the good and bad, they're both necessary. Yes, Ali.
I just thought that it's quite interesting that Maulana talks about the imperfection. And I think in the modern world that we live in, where we have so much comfort, this seeking of absolute perfection, which is a measure of happiness. If we have a perfect life without problems and miseries and difficulties, then that's a happy life. That in itself leads to a miserable life, because no matter how great things are in life, we can always find something that is not going according to what we like, just some kind of imperfection, and that will make life miserable for us.
Yeah.
So I think there's a saying that if a man wants to have a miserable life, then he can always find 1,000 reasons for it. And I think that it also comes from ultimately from greed and ego, that we wish to control everything, right? And I think there was a passage where we where Maulana says that you should become niyaz and you should seek naz, right? You should understand that you are all needs, and the only one who can satisfy your thirst is Allah.
Totally. Yes, Kenza.
Yeah, just on a small art note, every carpet has a defect. You know that? No, they always put a thread that is a complete different color, because you can't produce perfection, and because humility in front of God, you have to introduce perfection. You can never have a perfect carpet. And in ceramics also, and even the cheap ceramic, I mean, all the one made by hand, obviously, if you look carefully, you will always see a small defect, like a color that shouldn't be there, a tulip that's a little bit crooked, that is to prove mankind's humility, that you cannot reach perfection.
Indeed. And you know what? We need that. We need randomness in our lives. If everything's ordered, if everything's organized to the extreme, we'd go crazy.
I mean, nature is not organized. Not every single random. Flower looks like another flower. They're not all gray. They're multicolored, and some are, daisies, and others are orchids. And a tree, it's not the branches, they don't all go up vertically, and so the nature of things is to be disordered, if you want to call it that way, I guess, or random, as you said.
Indeed. And, a few times we've been talking here, loneliness, people's isolation. It has to do with this, with need. Because as Maulana here explained, several examples, every time there's a relationship, there is need. You go to the baker, it's because you need bread. Right? If you go to the baker and say, "Oh, I don't need anything, I just want to be there," the baker will say, "Get out." Right? So every time there's a relationship, it's because of dependency, it's because of need, it's because of that defect. If there are two people who are independent and they don't need each other at all, there is no relationship happening. There is isolation. Every time there is a relationship, it's because of those defects, because of those imperfections, because of those needs. Yes, Ali.
Do we have more time to talk about imperfection?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought that another interesting thing is that as far as our understanding of the universe goes, in the beginning of the universe, as cosmologists believe, there was actually an imbalance of matter and antimatter, because we actually had one more matter particle for like 1 million antimatter particles. There was like one left over. So everything balanced out, and if matter and antimatter come together, then they just collide and you get energy. But because we had just a tiny amount of matter in comparison to antimatter, which was left over, then the universe actually came to be. And if there was not that very, very small imbalance, then nothing would come to be, as far as we understand. So I always like this fun argument for some people who are perfectionists when they say, "Oh, it's not perfect." I say, "Oh, yeah, but if it was perfect, then we wouldn't be here."
Indeed, Allah. And there are stories that, they will say that Moses, on the way to Mount Sinai, he sees a worm, and the worm, I don't know, bites one of his fingers, something like that. And then he goes to Mount Sinai and he says to Allah Ta'ala, Ya Allah Ta'ala, your creation is so perfect. And I just have one question. Why did you create this worm? And then Allah Ta'ala says, the worm was here too. And he was asking, why did you create Moses? So the thing is, yes, everything in this world, right? If there was no worm in this world, the world would lack something. The world is perfect because of its imperfections, because of these things that we perceive as imperfection. Okay, so yeah, Maulana says, هر که نقص خویش را دید و شناخت اندر استکمال خود ده اسب تاخت. The people who try to perfect themselves, the people who try to better themselves, improve themselves, are those who know that they know their own defects, they know their own deficiency. But those people who don't fly, don't make a move, don't move towards Allah Ta'ala, they're the ones who think they're perfect. They're the ones who think they're good. And Maulana says, "Illati badtar z pendar kamal nist andar jan to, ey zu dalal." There is no disease, there is no ailment in us, in human beings, worse than thinking yourself perfect, thinking that you're perfect, thinking that you're good, you don't need improvement. And that's the fault of Iblis. That's the disease of Iblis. Because what did Iblis say? Ana khair, I am better, I am the best. In the Qur'an, why don't you bow to Adam? Because I am the best. Ana khairun min. You created me from fire. You created, so I am the best. That's the disease. And Maulana says, don't think that was just Iblis. No, that's in all of us. That's the Iblis in all of us thinks, I'm the best, I'm the better, I'm better than everyone else. The fault of Iblis is thinking, I am better, and this disease is in the soul of every creature. All of us have this disease in us. All of us have little Iblises in us, and some of us are bigger. Oh, we may think we are broken, we may think we're humble, but no, that's clear water on top. Beneath that, beneath the surface, beneath the humble humility, the surface level humility, deep down there is that Iblis in us. So what should we do? We should purify our stream. We should purify our river. Can we do that ourselves? By ourselves, our own guidance, our own perception? Maulana says no. هست پیر راهدان پرفتن نفسهای نفس باغهای نفس کل را جوی کن. If you want to purify your streams of your body, of your soul, who is the one who can help you? Is the pir, is the guide, who knows the way. جوی خود را کی تواند پاک کرد. Can a stream purify itself, cleanse itself? No. نافع از علم خدا شد علم مرد. Our knowledge is dependent on Allah's knowledge. We cannot remove our own ignorance. کی تراشد تیغ دسته خویش را. This is a Persian proverb. Can چاقو دسته خودشون نمیبره. In Persian we say the knife cannot cut its own handle. So the knife cannot cut its own handle. That's why you're not your own best teacher. You know, a lot of self-help industry, they say you're your own best teacher. No, Maulana says no, because you're biased. And you can't do that. Even, a heart surgeon might operate on other patients, but he cannot operate on his own heart because he cannot see that clearly, right? It has to be another surgeon to operate on him. So don't think that you can get rid of your defects by yourself. You need a surgeon. روب جراحی سپارین ریش را. Go and entrust your wound to an expert, a surgeon who's an expert. بر سر هر ریش جمع آمد مگس تا نبیند قبح ریش خویش کس. But another problem is people are wounded, people are injured, but they don't see their own injury, right? If it's a physical injury, people see that clearly. If it's, your arm is broken, you easily know your arm is broken, you go to the doctor. But if it's a spiritual ailment, you don't see that. It's more hidden. And flies gather on your wound, on your spiritual wounds, so you don't even notice that you're ill. Right? And what are those flies? Those flies are thoughts and possessions and imaginings and darkness of states. Those flies gather on your wounds, you don't even notice you're sick. So you don't go to the doctor. Or sometimes you go to the doctor and the doctor lays a plaster, right, a bandage on your wound. And that pain is gone. It's like taking painkillers. The pain is gone. And you think, oh, okay, the pain's gone, so I'm good now. I'm fine now. But no, what you don't realize is it's because of the plaster. You think you're fine. You think you're healed. But no, that's because of the plaster. That's because of the bandage. So don't turn your head away from the plaster. Don't get rid of the plaster. You're not good yet. You're not fine yet. So know that it comes from the ray, comes from the ray of that plaster, of that physician, of that guide. Don't think that it's your own constitution. Don't attribute it to yourself. Attribute it to the physician of souls. Habib al-Qulub. Yes, Lahaj.
Yeah, this section reminded me of the section before where the noble prophet was speaking to Imam Ali, saying, never think that you have arrived, and you'll have to keep seeking. And also the fact that our beloved prophet used to pray so many times a day, and he used to say that I don't feel like I'm what is it? I'm trying to get the word out. Sorry. What God is worth is that what I'm doing is kind of worthless compared to what God is actually worthy of. But I really like the idea of the knife, because I hadn't heard that expression. Because we tend to see other people's faults, but we can't see our own
faults. Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, it just he hits the nail on its head. The way he just explains it is just so powerful.
Yeah, most people overestimate their own accomplishments and underestimate their own defects. Yes, Kanz.
Yeah, I just want to say that the idea of the knife, this is you find it in a lot of the old Buddhist texts. And it goes along with the fact that you cannot see your own eyes, which is very profound. You cannot see your own eyes. You understand? You see outside. So you think you're good, because you can't actually reflect yourself. You can't reflect upon yourself. The modern expression would be, pulling yourself up with your own bootstraps, which is impossible to do, obviously. So this is why you need either a guide, or you need, very long sessions of meditation in front of a wall to realize what's wrong with you, and trying to make yourself a better person.
And you can't see your own back, right? That's one thing I noticed when we had the lockdown, because the barbershops were closed. So
that too. But the idea of the eye is really, when you think about it, it's a very, very powerful image. The fact that you can't see your own eyes.
Your own eye. Yep. Yeah. 100%. Yes, Rafa.
Yeah, this is actually beautiful. Thank you, Kenza. It reminded me of a play written by Iraqi poet Abdul Razzaq Abdul Wahid, and he's not actually, although his name is Abdul Razzaq Abdul Wahid. He's a Sabi, and he's one of the best modern era poets. He died, I think, a few years ago, and he wrote a play. It's called Al-Hurr Al-Riyahi. He's like one of those killed with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam in the Battle of Karbala. And in that, it's a comparison between the inner thoughts of Al-Hurr, while he is preparing, because he was a leader of an army who Imam al-Hussein, and made him stop in that particular place away from the river, so that they can put pressure on him, to concede to Yazid. So, and the other hand, there are the inner thoughts of the Shimp. Eventually, Al-Hurr turned against his superiors and joined Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and became true to himself, and his inner thoughts. While, on the other hand, we have the Shimp, who killed Imam Hussein and chopped his head, basically. And he, after the incident, he has these thoughts, and that attack him every night, and coming to him, and and no one is talking to him, because of what he did. And the moment, and there are two actually people who are his close friends trying to keep these thoughts away, but he says these thoughts are becoming bigger and bigger, and they are coming, and I cannot do anything about them, and no matter what I do. I need someone to talk to. And eventually, an old man, comes to the house seeking help, and he said, provide him with food, provide him with drinks, prepare the bed for him. And once that person realized that this is the killer of Imam Hussein, he said, hey, I don't want your food, and I can't drink your water, and I don't need to sit here. And he said, why? He said, because of what you did. And those two persons were so mad, that why do you talk to him like this? And they said, no, please, let him talk. I want someone, to tell me what I did. I know I did something wrong and horrible, and I need someone to tell me, which is exactly, he at that moment he didn't look inside, but now he's looking inside, and he said, "Oh my God, what did I do?" It's like Macbeth, all the water of the oceans will never clean this hand, after he did his the killing of Duncan, right? So it's very important, this moment of reflection, but it has to happen prior to an early stage of life. It shouldn't be delayed. It shouldn't be delayed. Like we come to a point where we reflect on our deeds and we rediscover our things, but it's too late. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So he realized the bad thing that he had done after his remark, right? After that person's remark.
No, like it is a very beautiful play actually. When I hope I will send it to you guys. It's in Arabic, so it's he said the moment he killed Imam Hussein, he like as if something entered him, which is fear, and he became afraid of everything, and that fear was becoming bigger and bigger every day. He can't explain it, but that old man, he captured it, and he was able to externalize it, and he was happy that he was there. He wanted to listen to him more, but the old man didn't even give him that chance, and he left so quickly, and leaving him with his fears and agony. Yeah, I will share it with you, this play.
Yeah, thank you, Prophet.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and that's why Maulana says that the knife doesn't cut its own handle, is because we're all biased. The nafs is there, and then we justify. The nafs is really good at justifying things. We make religious justifications, logical justifications for the bad things that we do or we've done to excuse ourselves. We're so good at doing that. We're so good at justifying, right? We come up with religious justifications, so-called logical justifications, because of that bias. And that's why there has to be someone else to assess, someone else who is not biased, who will tell us, no, that thing was wrong. Because if it's left to us, the bias will come in. Yes, Anj.
Sometimes the people of knowledge and the people, they're actually in far greater danger than the people who do not know that much. And I mean, we have countless examples of theologians throughout history and caliphs who justify mass murders and killings based on religious views. One of the most infamous is, of course, Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, who was, I mean, his brutality is well documented in history, but he was also the second person after Yazid to bombard the Kaaba with the catapult, and he actually completely burned and destroyed the Kaaba when he sieged it during the, I think it was the beginning of the Marwanid dynasty. But then the interesting thing is that he was so brutal that he had millions of people in prison, and he had killed hundreds of thousands. And even the Prophet had prophesied his coming. A butcher from the tribe of Banu Thaqif. But the interesting thing was that he was actually, he had memorized the Qur'an from a very early age. He had a weird passion for writing the Qur'an, and he had actually written many Qur'anic scriptures with, handwritten Qur'anic scriptures. So he was somebody who, on the face of it, knew much more about the Qur'an than me, for instance. But he was really good at justifying his own brutality. One of the things that he used was that he would label the people who were against the caliph as kuffar, and he would use the verses of the Qur'an that has common warfare, that you should be decisive and you should battle the kuffar and you should kill them. And he would use all of these justifications for his mass murder and for his brutality. And even to the day that he died, he never regretted any of his actions, because he was so good at playing tricks on himself. And that's the danger of knowledge. In the wrong hands, it's a very dangerous weapon.
Yes, Sanai Ghaznavi, he says, "Cho ilm amukhti as hers." When you learn knowledge, but the greed inside you is there, the nafs is awake. Cho ilm amukhti as hers angeh tars. Then be afraid. Then that's the danger. Kan dar shab cho duzdi ba charagayat gozide tar barad kala. It's like a burglar at night with a lamp. If a burglar doesn't have a lamp, it will take whatever he can find. But if a burglar with a lamp, it will take the most precious items. So, those who have lamps, but they don't have the knowledge, that's still bad. But those who have the knowledge, they will justify the bad things. They will justify the worst crimes. They will come up with scriptures that justify their own positions, their own biases. And that's dangerous. That's the burglar with the lamp. Yes, Kenzie.
No, I just wanted to say I can identify a few world leaders these days that fit the description.
Yes, yeah, we don't want to get into modern politics.
No, but I'm
yeah,
just...
Sure. Yes, Ahad.
I really like the section about the medicine. It's like mainstream medicine where the doctor is just treating the symptom and not the root cause. Like the sticky tape you kind of putting over something to cover it up, but you haven't really healed the wound. The wound is still underneath and it's just being covered up. It's like so many things going on in life, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what Maulana is saying. Sometimes you go to the doctor, which means, sometimes, you read the Qur'an, you go to the masjid, you pray 2 rak'ats, and you feel that calm, you feel that, now I'm good. Now that evil is gone. But it's still there, it's underneath. So don't take the bandage, don't turn your head away from keep the bandage on. You need that. You need the plaster, you need that. Don't think that you're good now. Yes, Rafid.
Yeah, about this danger of the lurking enemy. Ali in his book, the Hajj, he speaks about the jamarat, the throwing the stoning the Shaytan.
Yeah.
That actually is, everybody knows it's not the actual Shaytan. It's just a soul. It was made really very big now for reasons. But the fact that we go every day, like for 3 days, we go to that place and stone the Shaytan. It is the enemy within us that we need to stone. The first stone is to basically wound the Shaytan. The second is to kill it. And the third is to erase it. And that's what we need to do, with the enemy inside.
Yeah, indeed. In the Ramya Jamarat, in a sense, it's easier because you imagine the Shaitan outside yourself and then you throw the stone. But a lot of the time, the Shaitan is inside us.
Inside.
And then when the Shaitan is inside us, you're not as harsh. You're gentle with the Shaitan. Yeah.
and the Shaitan is actually, you look at it in the dua, of Ahlul. He said, they speak about the Shaitan, talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they talk about the Shaitan to Allah. They say, you made it run through our blood within us.
Indeed, within us, in our blood. Yeah, indeed.
Yes, our blood. So it's basically inside. It's not something external. No, it's within us.
Yes, Cancer.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that sometimes that notion of Shaitan is really abused, in the sense that it's so easy to blame something that is not yourself. So in the sense that, they can tell you it's Shaitan, but no, and it doesn't lead to changing yourself. It doesn't lead to transforming what's wrong with you. because you're always blaming something that is outside of you. You know, it's like, I know this mother, she was saying, like, you know, her daughter is obsessed with the phone, and then she, you know, and it's Shaytan. And I just looked at her, I was like, no, it's the phone, you know, just take the phone away. You're the mother, you're in charge. You know what I mean? Because the mother felt powerless. You know, she said, it's Shaytan that's making my daughter do, you know, watch the phone all the time, TikTok or whatever. I told her, no, it's you. I mean,
Right.
you're the mother. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. It's abused, like, you know, because it's a way of not looking at our own problems.
Right.
It's so easy
Not
to
taking
blame it on something
responsibility.
else.
Yeah, totally.
It's actually, yeah, you are absolutely right. This is, it's like psychological. Yeah, it's like it gives us the peace of mind, you know, and it's easier way to avoid responsibility. Even they say, like in dictatorial regimes, for example, they provide some kind of peace to the people because the people don't have an option, and they stripping them of that option, of the ability to make choices, and they behave on their behalf, you know, to give them to decide on their behalf things, you know. It makes it easier for them, you know, to live in a way that's easy, you know. You don't need to stress about electing the president, making legislations, blah blah blah, all kind of things. And the same thing with the Shaitan. Yeah, we blame our actions on it, and in the day of judgment, he said, "Well, I didn't do anything. Yeah, I just told you to do it, and you did it. Yeah, the responsibility is ours."
Yeah, absolutely. There's a passage in the Quran, I'm paraphrasing, so please forgive me if it's, but Shaitan on the day of resurrection says, I'm not, they're always blaming me, but I just called you. I just sent invitations. You accepted. It's your responsibility. I fear Allah. So yes, people take, when they do something good, that's the nature, again, the nafs, right? When we do something good, we take credit. We did it. Right? When we do something bad, we blame Shaitan, we blame America, we blame we always blame someone. But yeah, when it's something good, it's our accomplishment. It's something bad, it's it's the devil, it's external forces. Yes, Robert.
Yes, and even this like idea that the Shaitan is locked up in Ramadan,
Yeah,
in the month of Ramadan, it's locked up. If we reflect on it, why is it? Is still people are doing something bad there, you know?
Yeah.
But the thing is that, and this is linked also to our conversation, that thirst, hunger, refraining from food is what keeps the Shaitan under control. And that Shaitan is basically probably the hormones, the things that within our blood that the Imams refer to in their du'as. That's why, like probably in all traditions, mystic traditions, they say you need to eat less, avoid excess, and do reflection you know, so that you control yourself, and actually you're controlling the Shaitan within you.
So maybe Shaitan doesn't like coffee?
Well,
Because I'm really in a bad mood in the morning if I don't have coffee. So maybe, I don't know.
You're not alone. You're not alone, Kenza.
I'm just talking about Ramadan when I'm missing coffee.
Yeah, the coffee. Ramadan. I drink. Yeah, and no matter how much coffee I drink in the night, in Ramadan, I still sleep. I still go to sleep.
Alijan.
Yeah, I just thought of a funny story. I mean, it's obviously not a true story, but I find it interesting. So the story goes that there's a man who is a thief, and he lives in his city, and he's actually quite good at his job. So he's really creative, and he finds new ways to steal from people, and he's never caught. So he has a good livelihood, and he has actually collected a lot of wealth from his work. So then when he becomes older and he says, "Oh well, it's time for me to go to the Hajj. You know, everybody goes to Hajj. It's time for me to go to the Hajj as well." So he goes to Hajj and he does the rituals and everything, and then he gets to the house of Shaytan, right? So he picks up stone and then he throws the stone towards Shaytan's house. And up until this point, Shaytan is obviously really frustrated because everybody comes, you know, curses Shaytan and then throws stones. But then this guy who used all of Shaytan's tricks, all of his creativity came from Shaytan, and he actually gained a really good livelihood and came to Hajj based on Shaytan's advice. At the end of the day, he's also throwing stones. So at this point, Shaytan comes out of his house and screams, "You're also throwing stones at me? I helped you all the way, and you came to Hajj because of my help, and now you're also throwing stones at me? Take responsibility for yourself." So it's really, I really like that story.
Yeah, this is similar to the people in Iraq when they build a house. We have a tradition that when they finish building the house, they put a stone in which inscribed "Hada min fadli Rabbi." This is from the blessings of God, you know. And basically, these people, or many people, are making haram money, corruption, embezzlement, bribes, you know, all kind of things. And they build houses. They say this is from Allah, from Fadlullah. So this is from Fadl Rabbi. Yeah. So basically, we reach a point where we don't recognize God from the Shaytan, astaghfirullah, when we are deep in haram.
Yes, Ahmed.
Sorry. Yeah, there was this story. I think it's a Buddhist story, where a grandfather is telling a story to the grandchildren, and he says, inside all of us, there's a fight between two wolves. One of the wolves is very loving and generous and caring, and then the other one is very angry and critical. And then at the end, one of the children, they say, "So which wolf will win at the end of the day?" And then the grandfather says, "Well, the one that you feed. If you feed the angry one or the loving one."
Or the loving one. Yeah, exactly.
So that's a choice that we have. We can't say, "Oh, it's Shaytan."
Indeed. They say grass is always greener where you water it. The grass that you water, that grass will grow. You water the weeds will grow. You water the Shaytan in you, that will grow. You water the spiritual side, that will grow. So your next section, inshallah, so Maulana is going to elaborate on that. He gave the imagery of the bandage and don't turn your head away from the plaster. And if you see that good, if you see the ray of light, don't think that light comes from you. It doesn't come from you. That light comes from the guide and ultimately from Allah. And then the next story is an elaboration on that. So it's about the scribe, one of the katib, one of those people who wrote the Qur'an, and then the ray of the revelation, the ray of the wahy shone upon this person. So this person in his head, he completed the verse. And then the Prophet said the exact same thing. Then he thought to himself, maybe this is not really revelation, or maybe I received revelation as well. And he turned away from Islam, turned away from the religion. And Maulana says, yes, it's because he didn't realize. He didn't realize that it was just a ray. It was just a reflection of that ray of light that came from the sun, which was the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. So yeah, that's inshallah the next story, which we're going to read next week, inshallah.